They didn't just lie to you about history, they lied to you about reality. From the moment you were born, you were taught to believe the world is made of matter, solid, separate, predictable. But here's the truth, it's not. Reality is energy, frequency, field, and once you understand how those fields work, everything changes. That's why they hid it. Because if you knew how energy actually functions, it connects everything, how it responds to thought, emotion, and intention, you wouldn't be so easy to control. You wouldn't outsource your power. You wouldn't need their systems, their structures, their rules. You'd be free. The ancients knew this. For thousands of years, civilizations worked with energy fields, like we now work with machines. They mapped meridians, activated chakras, designed temples as tuning devices. They understood that the body was not just physical, it was an energetic instrument, a transmitter, a receiver. But that knowledge was systematically erased, replaced with the belief that we are flesh machines, random events, brains in meat suits. And the real reason? Because people disconnected from their energy fields are easy to manage. They don't trust themselves. They feel small, separate, dependent. And worst of all, they forget. They forget they are made of the same stuff as stars, that their emotions are magnetic, that their thoughts ripple through the field, that every cell in their body is vibrating with memory older than time. So what did they do? They turned energy into woo, brushed it off as fantasy, mocked it as pseudoscience, when in truth it's the foundation of everything. And now, slowly, the cracks are showing, the system is failing, and people are waking up not to something new, but to something ancient. Let's get one thing clear. Energy fields are not spiritual fluff. They are physics. You are surrounded by them. You are one. Every atom in your body is in constant vibration. And where there's vibration, there's frequency. Where there's frequency, there's a field. This isn't speculation. It's measurable. Your heart emits an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your body. Your brain generates one too, but it's weaker than your heart's. That means your emotions, your felt state carry more energetic impact than your thoughts. And yet, what does the system tell you? Don't trust your feelings. Be rational. Stick to facts. Why? Because when you disconnect from your heart field, you disconnect from your power. They've built an entire culture around this disconnection. Schools teach facts, not intuition. Medicine treats symptoms, not frequency. News feeds fear, not clarity. And the result? You live out of sync. Your field gets scrambled. You become reactive, confused, dependent on external validation. That's not by accident. That's engineering. Because a person in energetic coherence, someone whose body, heart, and mind are aligned, can't be gaslit. They sense the lie even if it's well-dressed. They walk into a room and feel what's off before a word is spoken. They attract synchronicities, not because they're lucky, but because their signal is clean. And a clean signal bends reality. This is the knowledge they buried not to protect you, but to protect their control. Because if humanity remembered how to regulate its own field, how to charge it, how to broadcast intention into the morphic web of reality, governments, media, institutions would lose their grip overnight. They've been feeding off your confusion, but confusion can't survive in coherence. And coherence starts with one question. What am I resonating with right now? Every single system of ancient knowledge, Egyptian, Mayan, Vedic, Sufi, Taoist, pointed to one truth. The human being is not just a body, it's a field. A dynamic, vibrating, multi-layered field interacting with everything around it. Your thoughts don't stay in your head. Your emotions don't stay in your chest. They ripple, they radiate, they inform the field. And what you put into the field comes back. This is why the ancients built their structures with sacred geometry, not for decoration, but to amplify specific frequencies. They knew how form affects function. They knew that the shape of a room could shift the state of mind, that stone, sound, and space could work together to tune the energy body. They called it alignment. We call it forgotten. Today, the buildings we live in aren't designed to uplift, they're designed to suppress. Angled wrong, built with dead materials, lit with toxic frequencies. They scramble the field, disconnect you from your natural rhythms. You wake up tired, You walk through your day unfocused. You feel like something's off because it is. But no one ever told you it was energetic. Instead, they told you it was just stress, just poor sleep, just hormones. And so you chase fixes in all the wrong places, never realizing the architecture of your world is tuned to dissonance. Meanwhile, your body is screaming for realignment. Your field is trying to remember its original frequency. That deep harmonic coherence that once made you feel alive, connected, grounded, not just in your body, but in the universe itself. That memory, it's still there, waiting, echoing underneath the noise, asking you to feel it again. Because the moment you remember your field is real, you begin to move through the world differently. You stop reacting, you start resonating. Now let's talk about something most people overlook: coherence. You see, a strong energy field isn't about being positive. It's about being clear, authentic, aligned. Coherence means your heart, mind, and nervous system are in rhythm, not pretending, not suppressing, but harmonizing. And when you're in coherence, your field becomes powerful. Not in the loud, forceful sense, but in the quiet, undeniable way. A tuning fork can shift a room without saying a word. Think about people you've met who instantly put you at ease, or those who make you feel unsettled for no apparent reason. That's not charisma, that's field. Their resonance speaks before they do, and yours does too, whether you're conscious of it or not. This is why ancient initiates trained not just in knowledge but in frequency. They fasted, meditated, purified not because of dogma, but because they were tuning their field, raising its signal, removing static, preparing to hold and transmit energy without distortion. Compare that to today: overstimulation, constant distraction, emotional repression. We're surrounded by signals, radio, Wi-Fi, advertisements, unconscious people radiating stress, and we rarely take time to reclaim our own signal. This isn't about paranoia, it's about hygiene. Just like the body needs rest, the field needs clearing. Breathwork, nature, silence, sound, honest expression. These aren't luxuries, they're recalibrations. Because when your field is murky, your reality is too. Confusion, repeated patterns, strange, bad luck. It's not random, it's resonance, and they've trained you to ignore this, to laugh at it, to call it unscientific. But behind closed doors, elite institutions and intelligence agencies have studied this very science for decades. Why? Because when you understand how energy fields work, you don't just change your life. You influence the field around you. And when that starts happening, you're not just living, you're broadcasting. If this is resonating deeper than words, subscribe and hit the bell. You're not just learning, you're remembering. By now, you might be asking, if this energy field is so powerful, so real, why don't we learn about it in school? Why don't doctors talk about it? Why does mainstream science dismiss it? Because once you understand how energy fields actually work, you stop needing external control systems. You realize healing isn't always about medicine, it's about resonance. You realize protection isn't fear-based, it's frequency-based. You realize influence doesn't require force, it requires clarity. And that makes you dangerous to systems built on confusion, fragmentation, and dependency. This is exactly why knowledge of the human energy field was slowly rebranded as mystical, fringe, or flat-out fiction. In truth, governments have been studying this science in classified programs for decades. Look into the CIA's Gateway Process, Russian field manipulation research, or military-grade biofeedback tech. They weren't studying chakras for fun, they were decoding the interface. Because the energy field is the operating system behind the human experience. Once you learn how to program it, you realize that reality is not fixed, it's fluid. Molded not by willpower alone, but by the energetic signal you broadcast every second. That signal comes from coherence, emotional charge, belief, and subconscious memory. And it is active, whether you're aware of it or not. So when your life feels out of sync, when things seem stuck or chaotic, it's not bad luck. It's misalignment in your field. And fixing it isn't about fixing the world. It's about cleaning the signal. And here's the kicker. The field isn't just passive, it's intelligent. It responds to you, mirrors you, teaches you. When you're in alignment, it flows with you. When you're off, it creates friction not to punish, but to redirect. Every block you hit is a reflection of the energy you carry. Every trigger is feedback. Every breakthrough is confirmation that your signal just upgraded. This is why ancient traditions didn't treat challenges as random suffering, they treated them as energetic messages. When crops failed, they didn't blame luck. They checked the harmony between land, people, and spirit. When someone fell ill, the healer didn't just ask about symptoms, they listened to the field. They knew the body doesn't lie, neither does energy. And most importantly, they knew how to restore coherence. Now here's where it gets real. Your field is not just reacting to the world, it's projecting it. This doesn't mean you're responsible for every external event, but it does mean you're entangled with everything that enters your experience, through frequency, through resonance. Think of it like this. Your field is like a song. The more coherent the melody, the more life harmonizes with it. But when you carry unprocessed emotion, buried trauma, dissonant beliefs, your song gets distorted, and the field mirrors that distortion through conflict, delay, resistance. This is why healing isn't optional, it's functional. You're not clearing the past to feel better, you're clearing it to tune your broadcast. Because what you don't transmute, you transmit. And what you transmit, you attract. The systems that run this world would rather you never know this. Because once you do, you stop playing by their rules. You stop seeking answers outside. You stop reacting and start designing. And more than that, you start remembering. You remember the language of sensation. The way certain spaces expand your breath. The way people's words either land or miss completely. The subtle guidance that doesn't come from logic, but from resonance, from the deeper field behind the noise. This is what they feared. Not violence, not rebellion, vibrational sovereignty. Because a human who trusts their energy is impossible to program. They sense manipulation. They smell distortion. They don't need to control reality. They co-create it. There's a reason you've been feeling the call to this information, not just out of curiosity, but out of recognition. Because deep down, your field already knows. It's been trying to speak to you through intuition, through dreams, through that subtle dissonance when something doesn't feel right, even if everyone else says it's fine. That's your energy intelligence, the part of you that sees through the mask. And right now it's waking up. You're starting to notice patterns, synchronicities, sudden surges of emotion that feel like they're not entirely yours. You walk into a room and sense the atmosphere. You think of someone and they call. You speak a truth and the room goes still. These aren't coincidences, they're field responses. Because as your awareness sharpens, your field gets louder. It begins to reflect not just your internal state, but your alignment with truth. And the more truth you embody, the more unstable lies become around you. This is why awakening can feel chaotic. Not because you're breaking, but because the false structures are. Your job is not to hold it all together. Your job is to listen, to breathe, to stay tuned. Because the field responds to clarity. And clarity doesn't mean having all the answers. It means you stop pretending you don't already know. That knowing, it's ancient. It didn't come from books. It didn't come from a guru. It came encoded in your cells, in your bones, in your electromagnetic rhythm. The field remembers. You are remembering. And the more you reclaim that signal, the less noise you tolerate. Shallow conversations fall away. False timelines dissolve. What doesn't vibrate with your truth starts to exit naturally, sometimes abruptly. But you don't panic. You don't chase. You align. And alignment begins to magnetize everything you were chasing before. Connection, purpose, peace, not because you forced it, but because you matched it. At this point, something shifts. You no longer walk through life blindly reacting, you begin to navigate by resonance. You feel the pull of people, places, and paths, not through logic, but through vibration. You know when to act, when to wait, when to speak, when to leave, not because someone told you, but because your field told you. This is how the ancients lived, not as followers of rigid systems, but as listeners to the field. They used intuition like radar. They trusted the sensations in their body. They observed nature as a mirror. They didn't dominate reality, they danced with it. And now, You're starting to remember how to do the same. You're noticing how food affects your clarity, how certain sounds either elevate or drain you, how your emotions spike around particular people not because of drama, but because of resonance, misalignment. That's field fluency. And the more fluent you become, the less lost you feel. Because suddenly, everything is information. Nothing is random. Everything has frequency. Every challenge is a recalibration. Every desire is a signal upgrade. So you start moving differently. Less force, more precision, less proving, more presence, less seeking, more tuning. This is what they never wanted you to discover, that reality is not dictated, it's conducted. That you are not a subject of a world out of control. You are an instrument tuning into an orchestra of creation. And your coherence affects the whole. Every time you choose clarity over chaos, alignment over avoidance, integrity over image, you emit a frequency that ripples far beyond your body. It impacts others. It repatterns environments. It stabilizes the collective field. You become a living transmitter, a quiet node of transformation. And without ever preaching or persuading, your energy becomes the permission others didn't know they needed to wake up to. This is the truth they never wanted you to know. You are not a passive observer. You are not a broken being needing fixing. You are a field in motion, a conscious waveform, shaping and being shaped by everything you encounter. You don't need to wait for permission to heal. You don't need approval to evolve. You only need to align your signal. Because when your field is coherent, everything around you begins to change, not overnight. Not with fireworks, but with precision, with intelligence, with a rhythm that feels less like effort and more like remembering. You start to notice how people respond differently, how doors open without you forcing them, how your presence becomes more magnetic, more grounded, more real. And you realize it's not because you became someone new, it's because you returned to what you were always wired to be. The old systems were built to distract you from this, to drown your signal in noise, to make you doubt what your heart already knows. But you can't unsee it now. You can't unfeel it, because something inside you, ancient, silent, undeniable, just switched back on. So here you are, in a world full of static, choosing to become a transmitter of coherence, not through words, not through force, but by tuning your field and walking as the signal. And as more of us remember, the distortion doesn't stand a chance. Now tell me this. What was the moment, subtle or seismic, that made you start questioning the version of reality they taught you? Drop it in the comments. Let's map the moment the signal came back online.